Forbes.com reported this week that a record number of Americans renounced their citizenship this year, hitting a new record. Quote, "It may seem like a drop in the bucket, especially when droves want to immigrate to America. Still, the newly published names of individuals who renounced their U.S. citizenship or terminated long-term U.S. residency is up, with 576 for the quarter and 1,577 so far this year. The growing trend is a sad one, with record numbers of Americans renouncing their U.S. citizenship." Oh, boo-hoo. Sad one? Why is that sad? Good for them. The number should be double, triple, quadruple what it is. For all the immigrant arrivals, the trickle in the other direction is becoming more pronounced. The tally was 3,000 for all of 2013, a 221% increase over the 932 who left in 2012. Wow. The Treasury Department is required to publish a quarterly list, a kind of public outing, putting Americans on notice of who relinquished their rights. What an odd way to put that. Who relinquished their rights? Do rights come from governments or are they inherent? Does one relinquish one's rights when renouncing citizenship? I would argue not, because rights are inherent. They don't come from governments. They aren't bestowed upon us through words on paper or men with guns. Expatriations, where people don't file exit tax forms with the IRS, are not counted. So could it be that these consular expatriations, where people don't file exit tax forms with the IRS, outnumber those that do? I mean, if you're going to leave the U.S. and say, "I'm no longer a citizen, screw you," and you decide not to pay the 50% exit tax, where you pay the government 50% of everything you own before you can leave, those aren't counted towards the number. So it could be much higher. Indeed, the Treasury Department's published list states explicitly this is just about whom the Secretary of Treasury has data. It means these numbers are understated, some say considerably. The presence or absence of tax motivation used to impact how one would be taxed on departing the U.S. Today, it's no longer relevant why someone expatriates. The law was changed in 2004, so tax consequences do not hinge on why one leaves. But that could change after Facebook co-founder Eduardo Severin departed permanently for Singapore with his IPO riches. There was an angry backlash. Mr. Severin's flyaway prompted such outrage that Senators Chuck Schumer and Bob Casey introduced a bill to double the exit tax to 30% for anyone leaving the U.S. for tax reasons. You don't like taxes? Tough. Chuck Schumer and Bob Casey are going to make sure you pay 30% if that's your reason. You don't like taxes? We're going to double them. That's the attitude politicians have towards you. If you don't want to fund their wars, if you don't want to fund the war on drugs, the war on brown people. Most expatriations are motivated primarily by factors such as family and convenience. Complex or costly taxes can sway a decision but are often only one factor. Many now find America's global income tax compliance and disclosure laws inconvenient or even oppressive. We have thoughts from the LRN studio.
Hello, Derek.
Hey, it sounds like this is Daryl W. Perry of Peace, Love, Liberty Radio. Welcome, you're on Peace News Now.
Yeah, so I was listening to you while I'm uploading my archives for Peace, Love, Liberty Radio, and I heard you say something that sort of struck me as odd. You know, people always tell me if you don't like taxes, you should just leave. But you said that if people leave the U.S. and renounce their citizenship because they don't like taxes, then they get taxed double?
Yes, that's correct. Chuck Schumer and Bob Casey introduced a bill to double the exit tax to 30% for anyone leaving the U.S. for tax reasons. Now, it's not clear to me whether or not that bill passed, but the sentiment is still there.
Yeah, it just seems kind of odd to me that, if you don't like it, then leave. But if you leave, we're going to tax you even more. So that sort of disincentivizes people from actually taking the advice to leave, does it not?
Yeah, it's like saying if you don't like a punch in the nose, well, then you're going to get a punch in the nose and a punch in the mouth.
Yeah, it just makes no sense. All right, just wanted to share that. Thanks,
Hey,
Derek.
Thanks, Daryl. Appreciate your thoughts. You can Skype in and sound almost as wonderful as Daryl if you dial in at Peace News Now. You can also call in our Hi-Fi Civ Dis line. That's 443-424-8347. Continuing with the article at Forbes.com, for U.S. persons living and working in foreign countries, it's almost a given that they must report and pay tax where they live. But they also must continue to file taxes in the U.S. based on their worldwide income. Claiming foreign tax credit on one's U.S. returns generally does not eliminate all double taxes. U.S. taxes are complex, and enforcement fears are palpable. Moreover, the annual foreign bank account reports, known as FBAR, carry civil and even criminal penalties. Civil penalties alone can quickly consume the balance of an account. And then there's FATCA, which requires filing of an annual Form 8938 once foreign assets reach a threshold. Is your head spinning yet? How much time do you think it would take a reasonable person to read all the tax codes? The U.S. federal government admits it doesn't even know how many there are. Good luck. Peace News Now. Talking about Americans renouncing citizenship. Americans. Can you guess? Probably the number one reason is tax avoidance. Because people, not only do they not support the wars of aggression against peaceful people in the form of prohibition or the endless wars overseas for foreign oil or protectionism of like distribution pipelines, things like natural gas and natural resources. It's the same old story. If you took U.S. history when you were a kid and you heard all the stories about the evil days of, but that was the past when the U.S. empire just had wars of aggression to expand their empire. That was just in the past. They're not like that today. See, old buddy Barack. He's only going into Iraq again. Well, because you'll believe the doublespeak, right? You're going to buy it this time. Bought it last time. Buy it again. Iraq War 2.0. He approved airstrikes. And I find this interesting, speaking of doublespeak and the whole 1984 Orwellian characterization of this story. His actual quote was this: American combat troops will not be returning to fight in Iraq because there is no American military solution to the crisis in Iraq. Barack Obama, those are his words. American combat troops will not be returning to fight in Iraq because there is no American military solution to the crisis in Iraq. So then what does he call it when there are military airstrikes? Is that not the military solution? All right. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that's doublespeak. No military solution, but airstrikes are the solution. What? I mean, that's doublespeak to make your head spin. That's complete opposite talk. So let's get back into why Americans are leaving besides their opposition to endless war. Taxes. The government's strangling the productive, and they're saying, I could do better elsewhere, thank you. But to leave America, you generally must prove 5 years of U.S. tax compliance. If you have a net worth greater than $2 million for average annual net income tax for the previous 5 years of $155,000 or more, that's tax, not income, you pay an exit tax. It's a capital gain tax, as if you sold your property when you left. At least there's an exemption of $680,000. Long-term residents giving up a green card can be required to pay the tax too. So you have to prove that you have given all of your productivity that's been asked of you to the federal government for the last 5 years to show you've been a good little slave. You're not just running away to avoid paying the slave master. You're not just looking to live free. You're going to another farm. You're going to go work for another master. You haven't rebelled. You know what this means, though? That the act, the innocent, benevolent act of withholding money, monetary support for the empire's wars is a serious act of sedition in the minds of these regulators, these slave drivers, right? Pay us. You owe them. How do you owe them? When did that obligation come about? Who are these people who you're even paying money to? Just this nebulous blob called the state. Well, I don't believe it. And I won't support it. I hope you won't either. Have the courage. Know that there are millions of Americans who have the courage to say, I won't support wars of aggression. I won't support it with my word or my deed. And I won't give you the money to fund it. It takes a personal responsibility for your role in the war on drugs. Are you funding the war on drugs with your taxes? Take steps in your life to reduce that support. The reality is, though many of us with our words reject wars and prohibitions, we haven't taken the steps necessary to sever all ties with that support. You know, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. You know this in the back of your mind. That prohibitions and the wars against peaceful people will end when you stop supporting them. With word and deed. You can get support for that here in Keene in the Shire, from whence this show is broadcast. Check out freekeene.com or the freestateproject.org for more info. Because if you're a doer who loves peace and wants peace, freedom, and total human liberation in your lifetime, that is the goal of the people who have moved to here, this geographic location called New Hampshire or the Shire. The Free State Project is the idea that 20,000 liberty-loving people will gather in the same geographic location to get active for liberty. With the dream that if we work together, we as individuals can restrict the power of government and limit its authority to just the realms of protecting life, liberty, and property at its maximum. There could certainly be less government in my utopia.